Welcome to today's Global Connections program. I'm Bill Miller. What is the Global Partnerships Forum? What is the forum doing to network with businesses in the private sector to combat climate change, poverty, and illiteracy? We'll be back in just a moment to talk about these and other important issues. Welcome back to our program. Today we're going to take a look at the private sector and the unique role it can play in helping to confront many of the contemporary problems affecting people in many places of the world. My guest today is an expert on this issue and on a very interesting organization. My guest today is Mr. Amir Dossal. Mr. Amir Dossal is the founder and chairman of the Global Partnerships Forum. Mr. Dossal is a 25-year veteran of the United Nations, and he served as the executive director of the United Nations Office for Partnerships until September 2010. Mr. Dossal is the special representative of the Secretary General of the International Telecommunications Union. He is also the co-chair of a new and very interesting initiative that he launched, Sustainable Oceans Alliance. Amir Dossal, welcome to today's Global Connections program.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having us.
I appreciate you being with me today. We've done this 3 or 4 times now.
Indeed.
I think we're getting into the.
And I'm honored to be back.
Well, thank you. My pleasure. Let's talk a little bit about, before we get into the Global Partnerships Forum. Talk a minute or two about what is a unique role that the private sector can play in helping to confront climate change, poverty, illiteracy, health problems, and just the whole myriad of problems we face today.
Right. There's an increasing realization that global challenges, global issues cannot be handled by one country, one institution alone. You need new forms of partnerships and alliances. And that's what the issue is currently. If you want to address unemployment, health, education, climate change, water, sanitation, you use the benefits, the leadership role of the private sector, the normative function of the United Nations, the policy-making leadership. Then you have the civil society, which has very good delivery systems. So the idea is that we help bring these groups together to deliver top-class systems on the ground. We don't do anything, it's the others who do it.
Exactly. So develop these partnerships. That is extremely important. And of course, the private sector too, it seems there's been more of a movement over the past several years that before sometimes the private sector, such as pharmaceuticals, didn't work closely with the World Health Organization or other parts of the UN system. Right. But it seems that today there's been really a sea change in attitude and opinion, and you see so many corporations, so many companies, people like Bill Gates and a variety of other folks, Ted Turner, Coca-Cola, just a variety of institutions working with UN agencies, do you not?
Very much so, and I think it's very clear to them as well. The CEOs of these companies see this as a good business model, because if they do good, they're also doing well in the process. They're creating new markets. They recognize that Coca-Cola, for example, is planning to spend upwards of $20 million in the area of water, safe drinking water, clean water, sanitation, to support the Deputy Secretary General's sanitation initiative, for example. Microsoft, Cisco, Intel, etc. They see value because if they can put new forms of technology and communication systems in place, you can do more business. People learn better, and if they learn better, they earn better.
Exactly. It helps everybody involved.
Absolutely.
The bottom line, and also from the humanitarian standpoint, it's very, very important. But let's talk about your organization briefly, the Global Partnerships Forum. When did you start it? Why do you start it? And basically, what do you do?
So it was very clear when I, quote, graduated from the UN in September.
Graduated.
Yes. It took me 25 years. I felt that what I'd learned, and over the years, I had the privilege to work with some wonderful organizations and companies. that the best way I can continue to be of public service is to help and continue to do these innovative partnerships and alliances. So we don't just go in and say it's a pure public-private partnership. We try and build these multi-stakeholder models. We take the power of media, social media, traditional media, to help partner with the UN, companies, NGOs on the ground, to get the message out. Each one learns from the other. And it's not always straightforward, but they increasingly see value in working together.
Exactly. Well, we've got 8 programs. This may explain your Global Partnerships Forum in better detail, or greater detail, I should say. And if we could just briefly comment on each of them, because I know
Please.
we have a lot to cover today. But you have several programs. One is the Women Leaders Forum. What exactly is that?
So this is directly focused on empowering women in Africa. At the end of the day, what we don't want to do is to continue this system of handout. We want to be hands up. They should be able to stand on their own feet. And this annual forum we created in partnership with the group called Advanced Development for Africa is focused on helping African women create their own businesses, address basic social issues, but also entrepreneurial side of it. So you can help them by prevention on the health side, better learning, and better learning comes through use of better technology, faster broadband access, for example. There is a new program which we are about to launch in September of this year called Zero Mothers Die campaign. That's about helping understand that the mother-to-child transmission of diseases, mother-to-child better health is critical for longevity, better mortality rates, and so on.
Exactly. And of course, the studies show that when women are involved, many positive things happen. You see the birth rates go down. You see that they're improving their economic situation. They're able to start micro businesses, and this is very important.
That's the kind of thing we want to encourage.
Exactly. Now, the other one, the next one is Global STEM Alliance. STEM is an acronym, S-T-E-M. What does STEM stand for, and what does the alliance do?
So we are privileged to work with the New York Academy of Sciences, which is obviously New York-based, led by my dear friend, Dr. Ellis Rubinstein. And it's about helping gifted children in the area of science, technology, education, and maths. As you know, if medical advancement, technological advancement comes through science, technology, education, and mathematics. And everybody realizes that young people should have access to these kinds of training issues. What we want to do is to showcase how STEM can play a critical role and promote gifted children even further, give them the right platform so that they can bring out their innovation in more clear ways and actually share it. Often, some of these technologies or advancements on training which take place, they're done in a vacuum. We want to put this out in the public arena. So on the 22nd of September, the day before the opening of the UN General Assembly, we are planning to launch this major alliance, which will include many governments, including governments of Malaysia, Indonesia, Australia, US, and others. And we're bringing together organizations who are doing really path-breaking work in this field.
It's very important to have partners in this, extremely important. Now, another program you're working on is the entrepreneurship clinics. We were talking a minute ago about micro loans, starting micro businesses. Does this tie into that, the entrepreneurship clinic?
Not wanting to be sort of facetious, but everything is interconnected.
Exactly.
Entrepreneurship
right.
clinic, our goal with this is very simple. Young people often have great ideas. They tend to, in a traditional household, they tend to go through an education process, and then after they graduate, they look for a job. But there's a growing group of young people. It says, hang on a second, I have some ideas to create something new, or I want to do business, and often they don't know how to go about it. So we've created this global program for young entrepreneurs between the ages of 18 and 25 to learn how to set up a business, how to write a good business plan, how to market it, how to have better governance, how to take that plan to market. In other words, go to the finance community, how to do market testing of these things, but at the same time, also understand the benefits of international engagement. For example, working with the United Nations and so on.
Well, we're covering a lot of territory in a very short amount of time. We're going to cover even more, but our viewers can go to www.partnerships.org and get much more information about what we're discussing today. Another clinic, while we're on the clinic track, is the United Nations Clinic. What exactly is that?
So what has happened over the years is that many people come to us and say, I've never been to the UN. I love what the UN does. Can you tell us how we can get to the UN? Can you tell us what is the UN about? Most people tend to see this as this big building here, the Secretariat. We want to make it easy for them to understand what I'd call a UN 101 presentation. What is the Security Council? What is the Economic and Social Council? What is the UN General Assembly? How can you get engaged to support the Millennium Development Goals and hopefully the new Sustainable Development Goals? People from all walks of life, from around the world, 7 billion people plus, they believe in the UN. And what we want to do is to get them closer to the UN, to support and UN values, basically, and actually implement them.
Well, you're watching Global Connections Television, which is an independently produced program. The opinions expressed on Global Connections are solely those of the moderator and his guest. Today we're taking a look at the unique role that the private sector and businesses can play in helping to confront many of the problems that affect us today, such as climate change, illiteracy, poverty, health problems, and many others. My guest today is an expert in this area. My guest today is Mr. Amir Dossal. Mr. Amir Dossal is the founder and chairman and president of Global Partnerships Forum, and he has been working on these issues for many, many years. Amir, we're running through some of your programs very quickly, but again, I know many of our viewers will go to your website to follow up on them, but you've got one called AIRS, which deals with resilience and sustainability. What exactly is that program?
So if you remember when the typhoon and the hurricanes happened in East Asia, in Indonesia in 2004, the US government felt one of the most important things they can do is to build a culture of resilience and risk reduction. AIRS is about creating that educational background, the backbone for people to be prepared. When Sandy happened a few years ago here, we were not prepared. This place and the floor below was all flooded. The US Pacific Command decided that it has an obligation to the region, to the Asia Pacific region, to create a kind of a learning center, a center of excellence. And we're privileged to be part of this process. It engages universities, US as well as Asia universities, to create a degree program of how to build better housing, for example, how to protect levees, how to help individuals, families live in a way that they are ready in case of another typhoon or hurricane or flooding or a disaster. And that, I tell you, this is leadership at its best by the US.
It certainly is. Well, there's another one that ties right into that, specific disaster risk reduction, which is a very important program. But the one, Global Partnerships Institute, what exactly is that?
So we, having had the privilege and honor to work with a number of wonderful people who are doing great things, the one gap we realized was a place for learning. There are many, many people who are doing great things, and they want to share with others. So the Institute is a platform which we are about to create later this year to be a place of learning and sharing best practice, where you can learn how to build partnerships, how to replicate them, and then ultimately partner with new players in this field. There are young philanthropists who are coming in and saying, how do I learn about multi-stakeholder partnerships? How do I learn about collaboration at the international level, regional and national levels? Our goal is to provide a little bit of a platform for them.
to get them launched. That's the way to do
Yes,
it. Now, we've heard a lot about climate change. A lot of people believe this is the #1 problem affecting all 7.3 billion people on planet Earth, because we see the climate is changing quite dramatically. We see that the oceans are being affected adversely, coral reefs are dying, desertification is taking place. You've been involved with the Sustainable Oceans Alliance, which is a very unique operation, idea, concept. What exactly is that, and what does it do?
So when the Millennium Development Goals were adopted way back in September 2000, the one missing item was oceans and seas. When 2/3 of the planet consists of water, we had only reference to water as a drinkable commodity, reference to it as sanitation. What the international community did not include at that time was how it impacts biodiversity, how oceans warming impacts climate change directly, how fishing, overfishing, bottom trawling has a direct impact on the livelihoods of people who live around the coastal zones. So protection of coastal zones is another thing. It became very clear that a number of member states wanted to address this. And I'm privileged to work with Ambassador Stuart Peck, who's the former permanent representative of Palau to the United Nations and now the ambassador of Palau for Oceans and Seas. He and I have created this Sustainable Oceans Alliance, and a number of Pacific Island countries are part of this effort. The president of Palau and the president of Marshall Islands are leading this effort for us. And the goal is very simple: raise greater awareness of the importance of protecting our oceans and seas for future generations, and include something relevant in the new Sustainable Development Goals about it, to take concrete action. Not just talk about it, but act on it.
Exactly. And you mentioned, well, you referenced the Millennium Development Goals and how they were launched over a 15-year period from 2000 to 2015. And of course, these were 8 logical, measurable goals to reduce abject poverty by 50%, to promote universal primary school education, to promote, to empower women, to reduce or reverse the AIDS pandemic. And of course, number 7 focused on sustainable development, number 8 on partnerships, which ties right into this. Right. You mentioned the discussions on the Sustainable Development Goals, and of course, these will be the ones that will basically kick in after 2015. What would you like to see come out of that as far as focusing attention on the oceans and other sustainable issues that are of interest to you and the people with whom you interact?
Right. First of all, I'm so pleased to see the current discussions which are ongoing through the open working groups. The UN is facilitating these. A number of working groups have had discussions on virtually every topic. And it has encouraged civil society, private sector to come in and give their views. It's also a public, if you like, consultation process. But one of the things I feel which has not been adequately addressed in this process, while it is physically being addressed but not in writing, is the use of technology, the use of broadband, for example, and about partnerships. Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said in 2012, there are 2 enablers for me: technology and partnerships, which means any of these Sustainable Development Goals, if you take climate change or health or education, whatever they might be, water, sanitation, it has everything to do with new technology, information and communication technology. It has everything to do with partnerships. So I believe that this should be threaded for each and every Sustainable Development Goal. I am privileged to be a member of the Broadband Commission, which is co-chaired by the Secretary General of ITU and the Director General of UNESCO, along with the two chairs actually are President Kagame and Mr. Carlos Slim. And we are on a campaign to include broadband access into the Sustainable Development Goals. We think, in the Western world, we're used to broadband. In fact, we cannot live without rapid access to our communication system. But in the developing countries, only 8 in 100 people have access to internet. Not broadband, just traditional internet. In the Western world, 76% have it. So if you see this gap, we want to address this gap and hopefully take a quantum leap.
You mentioned ITU, the International Telecommunications Union, which is one of the specialized agencies of the United Nations, one of the oldest, I think, is within the UN system that is out there. Tell me a little bit about the ITU. This is, so often we see International Telecommunications Union or Universal Postal Union or International Labor Organization, and we don't have the background, but what exactly does the ITU do?
So ITU predates the UN by almost 100 years, actually. It was the International Telegraph Union, if I'm not mistaken.
That's going back.
Going back a few years, yes. It provides that enabling platform for, it's one of the only organizations which has a tripartite relationship. UN, member states, private sector. It encourages better telecommunication systems in place. It encourages telecom operators to invest more. It helps them understand the benefits and provides that facility for spectrum, broadband access, technology, new technologies, and so on. So to really encourage investments in these fields. ITU is also kind of the thought leader in terms of the World Wide Web. It represents member states of the United Nations, basically. So it is like any other UN body, as you rightly say, it's a specialized agency. The Secretary General is elected by on member states, for example. And I'm privileged to be representative for them for global partnerships.
You've got one program that I recall is Mobiles for Midwives, and the mobiles and 4 is the letter 4, or the number 4, I should say, midwives. What exactly is that program?
So I cannot take credit for it. This is an ITU initiative.
It's an ITU, okay.
And it's actually led by the ITU office here in New York by Gary Fowley, who's the head of the office. And the idea is very simple. We have mobile technology here, handy. How can we provide access to better health information to midwives so they can monitor pregnant mothers? You know, the frontline healthcare workers, for example, if they had mobile technology and mobiles handy, they could take measure of the pulse of the woman, the mother, see how the child is doing, what temperature there is, report back instantaneously, and provide the right prescription. Often they don't know what the diagnosis is. So the idea of using mobile technology to diagnose and prescribe so that you prevent. So the mother is healthy and therefore the child is healthy. I think this is low-cost investment with huge return possibilities. And there's a growing group of telecom industry saying we like this approach. Quite a few are doing it, but we need to penetrate deeply and widely.
And that is so important to focus on this because so many of these programs can be carried out very efficiently and very effectively at a very low cost. So many of them do not have to be multi-million or multi-billion-dollar programs to help people. We saw the Grameen Bank with a very small loan, which helped launch the micro loan program to help generally women in Bangladesh and other areas of the world to start their own businesses. But these are very important programs that we need to learn more about and to get on board. Go right ahead.
So Grameen, for example, is a great concept where actually the rate of return on loans is much higher than commercial loans.
Exactly.
And by the way, the mobiles for midwives concept, we have 6.9 billion phones in use currently. Some of them are still the old smartphones, the feature phones. But with the new smartphones, they're so powerful that you can do many, many things, and you can do remote diagnosis as well. So with a bit of help, with a bit of connection from the developed world to the developing world, you can change the quality of lives.
Exactly. Well, Amir, in the last minute we have, and this is a difficult question, what do you see as the major challenge confronting the United Nations and the world? I mean, we talk about the UN, we're talking about the world as we move further into the 21st century.
I guess one of the most important things is partnerships. You see what's happening in Europe, for example. It's all about partnerships. What we need to do is to put together a collective wealth of knowledge, bring in the private sector in a greater scale. The UN's new partnership facility can be the hub for these innovative public-private partnerships. to address and accelerate the SDGs, not take it at the pace we've been going at, but to actually take a quantum leap.
And that is so critical to develop these partnerships because, as we said so many times over and over, no one group can do it, no one country, no one region can do it. We're all in this boat together. We have to row together to try to get to the other side. But Amir Dossal with the Global Partnerships Forum, this has been a very interesting conversation. I want to thank you for a very interesting and a very informative program.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'm Bill Miller. Thank you for joining us on today's Global Connections program.